Mr. Cornyn, in 2002, you did campaign on going to the Senate and helping President Bush move through his agenda, getting his judicial appointments through Congress, and you have supported Bush during your term most of the time. How can voters be sure that if you're elected to another term that you can bring the change that they want and so desire in Washington?
Well, Gromer, the only consideration I have when I consider my vote on the important issues that come before the Senate is what's in the best interest of the 24 million people of Texas. Mr. Noriega seems to not be aware of the fact that 90% of the votes in the United States Senate are done by something called unanimous consent. In other words, they're not controversial. There's bipartisan consensus that they should pass. I've agreed with the President when I thought he's right, on the surge, for example, that my opponent opposes, on things like the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act that allowed us to listen to terrorists communicating with one another to protect our country and our troops that are in harm's way. But I have to say I'm shocked to hear Representative Noriega said he demonstrated leadership by cutting and running to go to Oklahoma when it got tough in the Texas legislature.
As a member of the Texas House, you helped organize a group of Democrats, the legendary Killer D's, I guess you can call them, who walked out of the legislature and hid out in Ardmore, Oklahoma. Now that move deprived the House of a quorum and delayed the adoption of a partisan Republican redistricting plan. But was that really leadership? And I might add that if you're successful in November, you could be the 60th Democrat in the Senate, and that would give your party a filibuster-proof majority. How can voters in Texans be sure that you will represent them and not your party if you're elected to the Senate?
The first part of your question is that act, that political act, was something that needed to be done to protect the Constitution, to protect the Voting Rights Act, when an egregious power grab was attempted in this state by overturning an election. That's something that is done in third world countries. And I think people recognize we were vindicated, in fact, by the United States Supreme Court, that the Voting Rights Act had been violated, and so what we did was right. Secondly, I would say that we have had now 6 years of someone who has voted with the administration over 95% of the time, and we have seen the failed policies for the past 6 years, whether it's the economic crisis we're in, energy policy, health care policy that's broken, immigration policy, education policy, and we need a Texas senator, someone who's going to stand up and fight for Texas families. We don't need someone that's going to go along with what Washington says. We need somebody who's going to stand up and fight for Texas.